The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 24 minutes before 11 o'clock. All right, I'm going to tell you something, and I know you're going to roll your eyes. Not you, Robin, but some of you. So I was driving the other day on 441, right, and there was a guy with a trailer, and there were some pigs in the trailer. And all I could think about is they're going to the slaughterhouse, right? I'm thinking, oh my gosh, these pigs, they don't even know where they're going, and they're going to go be killed, and somebody's going to have them on their sandwich. Mm-hmm. And then I'm remembering, well, I eat meat, so I'm part of the problem. I guess I don't know. I tried to be. I didn't try. I was a vegetarian years ago. I guess it was 1974. So I did 3 years without eating meat. Although I did eat eggs and cheese and other things. So that makes me a vegetarian, I think.
Oh, okay.
I didn't even know. I was just trying to do what I thought I wanted to do. And then I went back to being a megavore, whatever.
Oh, I'm a carnivore myself.
No, you're not. You're an omnivore. You eat everything.
Oh, I see. Yes, I do.
Same as me.
Okay.
Omni. Sergeant William Muir is on the phone. He's got a book called Vegan Strong, the ultimate field manual for a kick-ass plant-filled life.
I love that title.
I really do like vegetables, though. I'm not the guy that doesn't. He's known as Sergeant Vegan. He's a United States Army veteran. Me. I'm sorry?
That's me.
That's
Sergeant
you.
That's him.
Yes. Good morning, Sergeant. I'm trying to brag about you.
me.
I'm bragging about you a little bit.
Good morning.
Let's see. You are a veteran from the Army. Thank you for your service. You taught English in Japan. Wow.
Thank you very much.
You're a paratrooper with the 173rd Airborne Brigade, and you served in Afghanistan as a combat medic. Wow. Well, thank you for your service, first of all, sir. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Yeah, I loved your lead up. That was a pretty cool story.
Where are you?
I'm calling from, or you're calling me, either way, from Culver City, California.
Culver City. Yes. Okay. I'm sort of familiar with that area. Well, thank you for being on the air. So, did you start becoming a vegan gradually? Were you at what age did you do this? Tell me a little bit about the history of being a vegan.
So, my vegan journey started, I would say, my freshman year of college, 1992. I gave up eating meat as kind of a joke. My mom was pushing me to give up something for Lent. My parents are very Catholic. Mm-hmm. And so, because Catholics don't eat meat on Fridays, they said, well, I won't eat meat, the whole time of Lent. Uh-huh. And people's reaction was incredible. They told me it was nice to know me. Such things as like, man, what? You're probably going to get sick, and we'll be visiting you in the hospital. Oh yeah, like there was not much. I didn't know any vegetarians, let alone any vegans. There wasn't many books about it. It just wasn't a thing. Even being in a university, I was going to LaSalle University at the time. There just wasn't any knowledge of that, and it was a very unknown for most people. So, needless to say, I did not die. Instead, I actually felt healthier. And as I started trying to do some research, which there wasn't an internet at the time, so I was just reading books, and I got a lot of my knowledge, believe it or not, from the dictionary.
Wow, from the dictionary. Now, is there any supplement you need to take? I seem to remember we had a doctor who said if you're going to go vegan, make sure you take a B12 or something.
Yeah.
Is there any truth to that?
I would say yes, but let me preface this. Pretty much everyone should be taking a B12 supplement, because if you get something called pernicious anemia, that is your B12 is low, you'll be in a really bad spot. And nowadays, multivitamins are fairly cheap. I take a GNC Ultra Mega vegetarian supplement, and it's $20 for 180 tablets and one a day.
Okay.
Pretty much anyone, even if you live in sunny California or Florida, yeah, you could run low on vitamin D and something. So
did you?
It's a cheap
So when you started out, the beginning of your story, were you vegetarian or vegan?
So when I first started, I don't even think I knew the word vegan. I just started becoming vegetarian. And then when people said, of course, I was going to die, I was kind of deep into the punk rock scene, and I was not going to give up on anything. I mean, when you're 18, you feel like you're invincible anyway.
Right.
So as I felt healthier, I was like, wait, is it possible all these people are telling me something that's not 100% true?
Yeah.
But then, yeah. But being really deep into the whole punk rock thing meant that I was ready to challenge anything anyway. So, and at that time I gave up drinking as well. Before I was actually legally able to drink, and that all kind of culminated in kind of a, like, I wouldn't say a super awakening, but just I was more receptive to new ideas.
Oh, were you a vegan when you did your service? And if you were, was that difficult?
Yes, and mostly yes. So I was officially vegan by the summer of '92. So I'm now celebrating my 26th year of being vegan, and yes, I've been vegan through that time. And yeah, being vegan in the military, it was sometimes ridiculous, and then a lot of times very easy. I was stationed in Italy, which, have you guys been to Italy yet?
Not yet.
No.
My bucket list.
So how do you eat pizza? You can't eat pizza.
Oh man. So you just don't get the cheese on it, which in Italy was a very normal thing. It's right on the menu, pizza with no cheese. A lot of people don't eat cheese.
Really?
There's a plethora of other toppings.
So it's veggies? So you have veggie pizza?
And now that yes, sir. And I ate that I was probably one of the fatter vegans, especially fatter vegans running 5 miles a day while I was in service. I ate, usually my diet included usually a pizza a day, and I would eat 2 kilograms of soy gelato a week, which is about 2.21 pounds of ice cream.
So
wow.
no
but they have
you
a
don't,
lot of
no dairy, no eggs, no nothing,
no.
right? Okay. Do you
no
know
dairy, no eggs in there.
Everything we know about you so far sounds like an IQ test where you're supposed to pick out which one doesn't fit, okay? So if you try to picture a paratrooper and then a sergeant in the Army and then a punk rocker and then a vegan, it almost sounds like none of them belong with each other. Except, well, maybe the paratrooper and the sergeant. So you're the punk rock paratrooper. Well, tell me about that.
Kind of, but there was actually...
Were you a musician?
Punk rock and the paratrooper. So while I was in the Army, actually for a little bit, I started a band with some of the guys in the service, and I was actually briefly in a band with some guys somewhere in Vicenza.
Okay.
And yeah, part of this came from when I was not stationed, but when I lived in Japan, I was in a band called Till I Die, and I was really trying hard to get into the music industry, and I did to some extent. And then 9/11 kicked off, and it was kind of hard to just.
You were in Japan?
Be in Japan, kind of doing my own thing.
On September 11th?
So when 9/11, on September 11th, I was walking home from work at around 10 at night, and I got a text that said, I was like deciphering it because it's in Japanese, and it said 2 buildings on fire, New York. And I'm like, what? And then a friend of mine called and said, have you watched the news? And I said, no, I'm walking home from work. And she said, you need to watch the news. So I learned about 9/11. I think I was up all night because I watched it in real time, but in Japan. And then I came into band practice the next day and said, I'm quitting the band. I'm going to be moving back to the States, joining the military, and going to fight.
Wow.
And they were, of course, very much like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I want to tell you something about this connection. It sounds like there's a delay, and so it sounds like I'm talking over you, and I don't mean to be doing that, so I apologize for that, but I promise you I'm not intentionally
no worries.
But sometimes that happens with phone calls in this day and age with computers, is there's a delay, and it's hard to tell on both ends whether to wait or not. So I just went to your website, sergeantvegan.com, sgtvegan.com, and there's a photo.
Yes, sir.
There's a photo of you that looks like you're probably in Afghanistan.
That's me in Afghanistan, pointing down to my forward operating base.
Wow. So what does the book help us with, the average person? Does it help the person who's not a vegan yet become one, or make a decision about becoming one?
I think it can. I think what my book does, oh yeah, I'm listening to my own voice. So what my book does that I think a couple other books don't do is it takes all of the arguments for becoming vegetarian, the health argument, the environmental argument, and of course the compassion toward animal argument that you were alluding to, looking at the pig wagon.
Yeah.
And it takes all those and it distills a lot of the hippie propaganda that I feel like has made a lot of people shy away from considering becoming a vegetarian or a vegan. I feel like if you ask most people, hey, do you care about animals? I don't know anyone who's going to say, no,
right.
I don't.
Right.
Or if you say, hey, do you care about the environment? Most people are going to say yes. And if you ask people, hey, do you want to be healthy? Most people will say yes. But if it's then you say, hey, would you consider becoming a vegan? They have a mental picture of what a vegan is. And to be fair to them, that picture is of a skinny, scrawny, wussy, angry millennial that can't hold a job, usually.
Yeah.
And that person has long hair, and there's a lot of other unsavory things with it. And the problem is, to be fair to everyone, I know a lot of those people, they are angry. They do have a right to be angry because there is a lot of, the slaughter industry, the animal agriculture industry is really, really bad for the planet. But I feel like when you try to disseminate some information and there's too much, maybe not just too much emotion, but there's too much propaganda with it, you kind of lose a lot of the objectivity, number one. And number two, I feel like people won't be as interested in it. And there's just sometimes too much negativity, too much baggage. And with Vegan Strong, I feel like I stripped a lot of that away.
Can I
that you can just read it and say like, yes, sir.
I want to ask a question, and I apologize for interrupting.
Okay.
I want to ask a question.
No worries. No.
I don't want you to take this question as I'm trying to be argumentative in any way, but I'm just curious.
No, that's cool.
For me, if it's about the animals, then am I hurting the animals just by having cheese? And in other words, eggs and cheese seem like they should be okay because you're not killing any animals to have those two things.
Now, it's quite possible back in the 1800s with a family farm in Old Betsy who, you went out in the morning at 5 a.m, milked your one cow, and that was that. Then at that point, are you hurting the cow? Maybe that's debatable. Nowadays, with factory farming and the dairy industry,
okay.
the cows they're artificially inseminated, so just like a human, they only give milk when they just had a child, so they're, you could say raped and you wouldn't be wrong. And then when the cow, at the end of its life, when it's not producing milk anymore, that becomes your cheeseburger. So the whole cycle, you're feeding into that cycle. And as far as the eggs go, that whole industry as well, they kill the male chicks. So, yeah, so it basically, if you buy into that system, unless you're on your own farm, and even then, there's a lot of problems with it. It's just better in industrialized 21st century, we just don't need animals anymore. I wouldn't have made this argument to people in the 1600s. When people are worried about the plague, your life expectancy. I was just reading something about Shakespeare. Their life expectancy was 35. So would it really be worth telling somebody, hey, you shouldn't eat meat? They're going to say, like, you have to drink beer because there's no potable water. No, I'm not going to make that argument to them. But somebody nowadays where, maybe the hardest thing they have in their day is what they're going to watch on Netflix at night. I think they'll be able to.
All right. So I do have an out.
They should be able to figure it out.
I do have an out. Robin's brother does have about a dozen chickens, right?
Yeah.
And she brings eggs over all the time. And so I could do that route because he takes care of his. I've been over there.
Yeah.
And he feeds them well. Those chickens are like pets.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. So I think I could do that one.
What happens to them at the end of their life?
They die.
They die.
Yeah, just like my life.
Yeah.
Do they then eat them, or
do they eat the chicken?
Well, if they when they die of natural causes, Jim buries them.
Oh, you know what? That sounds a lot better. I also think one of the things Vegan Strong does is I know a lot of people, and I can understand the reasoning. They consider themselves what they use the term abolitionist, meaning at no point do they see any point to say okay to someone doing something about animals that's wrong or harmful to the animals. Personally, though, I believe anything people can do to move toward a situation where we're using less animals and or hopefully no animals in their life, and something that's not hurting the environment, better for their health and better for animals as a whole, I feel like is a better thing.
You have a lot of self-support within your book. You talk to the person as if they're really there. You have different vegan meal plans that you offer. And you also give tips as to what people should do during the holidays or if they're out on a date.
Yes, ma'am. I try to include a lot of things that at 19 I had no idea what was going on. Questions that people might have, and give support to them, because I feel like it's very important to kind of think of this as, I know the hippies like to say holistic, but consider every angle and treat the situation from a whole bunch of different perspectives.
Oh, you also talk about shopping for vegan clothing. I found that interesting.
Yeah, it's something that I think people usually don't consider when they first take that plunge, but a lot of our clothing is kind of a byproduct of the slaughter industry. If you think of leather and suede and wool, and it's
I heard Paul McCartney answer that question.
And I personally I mentioned in the book a couple of times, I don't believe it's necessary to throw all your clothes out the day you become vegan. I think that's silly. I love people's idealism, but I don't think that's practical. And as far as I'm concerned, people should, if they have a pair of shoes they've been wearing, for a year, but they're still new, man, wear those things out. Or if you really feel strongly about it, give it to a friend, but don't just throw it away. If we think of the environment, do we really want more landfills, especially just because someone's making some ethical decision? No. Wear them for their entirety, or have someone else wear it, and then.
I'm gonna ask you a question, and I want you to answer from your own experience, and then from other people who became vegans. What kind of health changes did you notice in yourself, and have other people who've adapted the vegan lifestyle noticed?
So most people lose some weight, and it depends on. I think it depends on how healthy / unhealthy, how fat you were before. And if you ever watched the documentary Super Size Me, that guy, it was a walking nightmare. He was eating only McDonald's.
Right.
So it depends. If you're someone like that who's eating only McDonald's and drinking milkshakes instead of water, you're going to see night and day changes. However, some of my friends, some of my super fit paleo friends who are doing CrossFit 3 hours a day, would they really see those kind of night and day changes? No, it would be more that they're going to see their cholesterol numbers go down.
Oh, that makes sense.
Those people probably, most of those guys or gals are super young. They're probably not suffering from diabetes. So it depends on kind of where you're coming from. I think when it comes to health, it's very important to note that the vegan diet has been scientifically proven to be the healthiest. However, the healthiest as long as it's done right, meaning you're eating a whole foods plant-based diet, not just eating Twizzlers, which are technically vegan, but you don't really want to sustain on Twizzlers.
Right.
So whole foods plant-based diet, eating enough calories, and I also believe taking a multivitamin a day to make sure that you're getting your B12. That's the healthiest way you could possibly eat. But if you're not doing that, yeah.
I wondered if you could extend your philosophy about eating vegan to your philosophy of other things animal related, like zoos, aquariums, that kind of thing.
So I believe that's the difference. I'm sure you've heard the term plant-based now. So a lot of people have embraced vegan eating, but they've changed the name of it. They've called it plant-based. And that philosophy is that you're able to eat a vegan diet, which is the healthiest, but then you could, I don't know, go to a zoo, or I guess you could still work in a slaughterhouse and it'd be okay. Basically, eat vegan, but don't have any ethics behind it, I guess is what some people mean. So really, I feel like sometimes when someone says, "Hey, I'm doing the best I can," if someone is doing the best they can, then that's really the best that they can do.
Yeah, that's true.
Some people can go to some kind of crazy extreme. I don't believe that eating a plant-based diet in 2018 is really extreme. I lived in Gainesville for a year actually after I got out of nursing school and worked at the Gainesville VA.
Right.
You could find anything that you could possibly want to eat at the Trader Joe's, or what else is in the area? There's actually, yeah.
So why fish? I mean, fish is off the diet too, right?
Yes, sir.
But fish eat fish. I mean, fish don't seem to have a problem eating other fish.
Well, I think part of that is so obviously with fish, there's the environmental argument about what we're doing to the oceans. We're, for the most part, overfishing them. It's not just like one guy out there with a fishing pole. They're dredging the area.
Right. Okay.
You're killing most of the ocean life, and there's that argument. The other thing is, if you're going to go health argument, yes, eating fish technically can be healthy, but what about the what about the mercury in them?
Right.
There's a lot of those issues too. So vegans stay away from fish.
So before we run out of time, what's for lunch?
So lunch, I haven't even actually. I just woke up. I'm on California time.
Yeah, that's right.
What's for breakfast?
And on top of that, I usually work nights. I just had a couple days off, so I'm able to function this early in the morning. Usually, I would be going to sleep at around in about an hour from now. I get off of work at 08 in the morning, which is 11 your time, and then I've worked a 13-hour shift. I go home and I crash. I'll probably be eating a tofu scramble with what do I have in it? Probably some broccoli. I'll also do a Trader Joe's, not to unnecessarily plug them. I love Trader Joe's. A Trader Joe's English muffin on the side with some Earth Balance on it, and a hash brown.
Sounds good.
Nice.
I'd also like to mention before I run out of time, the book is actually going to be free on Kindle for the next 3 days.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
I'm doing a promotion. If someone goes on Amazon, just looks up Vegan Strong, they can add the Kindle to their cart from Monday through Wednesday.
All right, excellent.
For free.
Sergeant William Muir, thank you so much for. Am I saying your name right? Sergeant William Muir, Sergeant Vegan. Thank you so much for being on the air with us today. That was fun. We'll be right back. This is WOCA Ocala.
Fox News Radio, I'm Chris Foster. A second person has died in Toronto, shot by a man with a pistol firing at people on both sides of a street. There are 12 wounded, and Mayor John Tory says,
I promise all of the people of Toronto, but most importantly, those directly